Hey, how's it going, everyone? Matt here on Vox&Hops Episode number 8. Today I sit down with my first American guest, Gabe Seeber, the drummer of the Kennedy Vale, and he's a live drummer for Decrepit, Powerglove, the Faceless, to name just a few. He's sort of become the key guy that if you guys need like an extreme drummer to pick up your tunes really fast and is available to jump on a tour for you, well, Gabe Seeber's that guy. He's a super nice dude, he's super professional, and he is one hell of a drummer. We sit down, we talk about what it's like filling in for bands that you've been asked to session with. We talk about his time with the Faceless. We talk about his time with Abbath. We talk about how he started out learning how to play drums and his early days tracking demos. This is Vox&Hops Episode number 8 with Gabe Seeber.
I warn you, what you are about to hear is very disturbing indeed.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? This is Vox&Hops, and I'm here with Gabe Seeber today. He's here playing drums for Powerglove tonight in Montreal at Fufun Electric. Today we are at the Saint-Bock on St-Denis, one of the best micro bars in Montreal. It has an extremely varied amount of beers to choose from. There are 44 on the board that I can see right now. Today we have chosen to drink because he said, I asked Gabe, what kind of beer do you like? He says, I like IPAs, and I saw that they had Boréale du Nord-Est on the board, and I said, well, you're going to have to taste this one. So the Boréale du Nord-Est, the history behind this beer is that Boréale is like one of the biggest micros in Quebec. They're sort of more commercial now, and they put out like, a whole bunch of everyman day beers, like blondes and a dark beer and a white beer. And then the craft beer explosion happened in Quebec, and they got into the game. They hired a new brewer, and they started making the Boréale du Nord-Est. They did a little limited release at beer fests, and then they started releasing them in cans at their factory. People would line up in the rain to come buy this beer in minimal batches, and then they started doing limited distribution to stores in like chunks.
You could actually go buy it somewhere.
You can go buy it somewhere, but you had to wait. People were waiting in line there to buy them, so it became like this like myth and a fable. And the first time I actually saw one in a store, I was actually excited, which is
I can see why.
Which is just ridiculous.
This might be probably the best beer I've had on the tour so far.
Oh, cool. Cheers. Thanks. Color, for people that don't know, Boréale du Nord-Est, it's a nice hazy IPA. It's got, it's opaque. It's hard to see through. It smells, extremely tropical, fruity, like pineapple-y, mango-y, and it tastes deliciously refreshing, in my opinion.
Yeah, on a hot Montreal day like this.
It is swelteringly hot. I will give people a little bit of context. The heat wave is continuing. It's humid as fuck. And in order to get the podcast sound quality that I would enjoy, we are sitting on the terrace, which is the patio outside, and it's very hot. So thank you for putting up with this, Mr. Seeber.
Not quite as humid as Ottawa was yesterday.
Really?
It was terrible yesterday. Yeah.
So you're on tour right now with Powerglove.
Yep.
How has that been going?
It's been great. The shows have all been really well. Great turnouts. Last night I think was 170. All the Canada shows have been really good. Not a lot of days off. We're doing 37 shows in 40 days, and those 3 days off were, 12 plus hour drives.
The necessity drive days.
But yep, so we got Montreal tonight, Quebec tomorrow, and then we're done. And then
this is the end of the tour. This is over. Okay.
Yeah, so we're 35 shows in right now.
So how did you end up in Powerglove? How did that work out?
A mutual friend of ours, Eric, who is now playing drums for Necrogoblicon, but they had contacted him about filling in because Basil of Powerglove is like a CEO of a software company, so he can't leave for 6 weeks at a time. And management wanted to get them back on the road, see how it would do, what would happen, if Powerglove should be a touring thing again, because they haven't toured since 2012, and I think that was with like Dragon Force. So they had contacted Eric about playing drums for the tour. He was doing Warped Tour with Necrogoblicon, so he put me in touch with them. And then from there, they sent over the set list, worked on all the songs, went and rehearsed in Boston for a week, and now here we are at the end of it, 7 weeks
What is that
later.
like? So basically, you told me before that you're from Sacramento.
Yeah.
And now your Powerglove is based out of Boston.
Yeah,
so you had to get yourself there.
Yeah, they're based out of Boston. They took care of flights and everything and had a rehearsal spot set up for us. Did Airbnb for a couple days and then stayed with Basil for a couple days. And then
You have Basil's blessing.
Yes.
To be playing his parts on
and
his
he
tour.
came to a couple of the rehearsals, and we went over parts and fills and all that. I would say the first half of the tour I played everything verbatim, and then just because I'm a death metaler, I kind of, here's an extra blast beat
some
here
blast
and there.
for your own pleasure.
Yeah. Mario needed bomb blasts. I just had to do it.
Do you remember what your first experience with beer was like?
Yeah, I must have been maybe 12 or 13, and my parents drank Budweiser. Or now they've gone to Bud Light, which I'll argue with them any day. If I'm going to have a shitty light beer, I would go Coors Light over Bud Light. But yeah, it was probably a Budweiser, and I did not like it at all.
You snuck it, or?
No, I think they let me try it, yeah.
Okay.
And aside from that, I don't think I really got into beer until a few years later, sneak out of the house and drink whiskey at the park with my older brother and his friends and come back throwing up and terrible, and the room smells and everything.
All the good stuff.
Yeah, but probably not even until after I was 21 did I really start to enjoy beer and kind of develop more of a taste for it, and IPAs and everything. I remember my oldest brother, Dustin, used to drink Sierra Nevada a lot, and I had tried that. Even after starting to drink beer here and there, I couldn't really get into the IPA taste, but now it's that's what I drink all the time. It's just, I love to try new IPAs, and anytime on tour, I always go to the local bars and everything, ask what local IPAs they have and local beers. Try to get some new flavors.
Do you have a brewery or a beer in mind that really just opened? When did your appreciation for craft beer, IPAs, do you have one that you remember that was oh, this is what I like?
No, not specifically.
And nowadays, do you have a favorite beer at home?
I do like Stone Brewery. They have a lot of good IPAs, and Sierra Nevada too. I like Sierra Nevada ones. There's a new one near Sacramento. I don't remember the name of it. They have really good hazy.
Okay, that's the new wave.
Yeah.
It's actually on the way out, this whole hazy wave. We're sort of it's everywhere now, so you know that it's going to be over soon.
Yeah.
The next thing's going to be brute IPAs. Tell me about you as a kid growing up. And what kind of a kid were you? How was your life?
As a kid, I was much more athletic. I did baseball, basketball, skateboarding. I did BMX racing for some years. I took piano lessons for a few years. That was kind of my first experience with playing music. And I think it helped a lot, even just having a couple years of basic piano lessons. Then when I went and picked up a guitar or drums or everything, it just kind of felt like it came a little more naturally, having any sort of background with music and reading and sheet music and everything.
I've never taken piano. It's something that's on my list of things I want to do before I'm an old man and die.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's the absolute basic thing. I want my kids, I'm definitely going to start them in piano before anything else.
Right.
That's interesting that you think that even piano helps for your drumming.
Yeah, I just think... just music in general, having any sort of knowledge and understanding of theory or anything, you can kind of, with piano, there is, but a lot of classical pieces and everything, they don't play to metronomes. It's kind of, everything's just fluctuating and a lot of dynamic, which I'm still trying to get better about incorporating in drumming, but soft parts being played really soft and loud parts being played really loud.
As opposed to the death metal, everything perfect all the time and super perfect on the click. You were saying that you did a lot of sports and a lot of BMX racing. When did the transition from drumming and music take over? Did that take over the sports in your life, or was it...
As soon as I sat behind a drum set.
Everything stopped.
Yeah, so I skated a lot. I spent all of high school at the skate park, and then my oldest brother was always a musician. He was making up songs and just joking around, and he would always play a piano, bass, guitar, drums. He ended up buying a drum set from a yard sale for $100, and it sat at my grandma's house, and I would always walk to my grandma's house after school because it was near my high school. So I'd kind of watch him play and kind of figure things out, and then he would leave, and then I would go sit behind the kit and try to figure things out for myself. Drums were the last instrument I picked up. So I did guitar and I did piano and everything, but I knew as soon as I sat behind the drum set, like, this is what I'm going to do.
Oh, that's amazing. That's just right away. You knew it, the feeling?
Yeah, just, even though, like, you know, looking back, I was like, it was terrible, like, playing the worst thing, but I had so much fun doing.
Do you remember, like, what song you actually started with?
I think the first song I ever actually learned front to back was with my friend Rocky, who, our first band, we used to just do, like, a bunch of covers in my parents' garage and everything, but the first song we ever learned together was The Scentless Apprentice by Nirvana.
Okay.
And then from there, it was like, we did Kill Switch Engage and Cradle of Filth covers and Exhumed and Carcass, Impaled, a whole lot of, like, the gore metal type stuff, and that's kind of where I got the start into the death metal realm, was with gore metal, and then we started writing our own stuff. We were called Wretched Dawn.
Wretched Dawn.
Yeah, and it was very much Carcass worship.
Okay, yeah, you got to start somewhere.
Yeah, but still, even, like, looking back at those songs, I have a couple of them still on my iPod, and the recordings are absolute, like, dog shit. It sounds terrible. We had a Mac computer in the room, and we didn't have any microphones, so it was just the computer mic.
No way.
We would start to record, be like, no, it's too close. Put it at the other end of the room, start to record, no, it's too far. We were trying to find this in-between spot to put the computer so the mic would pick it all up.
Wow, you can't say you guys didn't try.
Yeah. But, yeah, it sounds terrible, but I still can look back and be like, yeah, I'm proud of these songs, you know. It's like, for what it was, we were like 16, 17 at the time, like, we wrote some really death metal songs. Like, people our age weren't doing that in Sacramento.
Were you listening to metal yourself at the time too?
Yeah. Again, a lot of, like, Carcass, Exhumed, and stuff like that. Cannibal Corpse, Rob Zombie, Korn, Slipknot.
And when was the moment, like you sat behind the kit, you knew you wanted, this was for you? Was there always a moment like you're like, I'm going to be a touring musician?
Not really. I just knew that I wanted to play drums. I didn't have any preconceived thoughts about this is what I'm going to do with my life, and I want to be on tour and travel and everything. It was just I want to play drums. But then I think the first video I ever made was playing Slavery in a Death Decay by Hour of Penance from Italy. And I think just posting that video online, we played a couple shows with Abysmal Dawn, so Charles got in touch with me at one point when they needed someone to fill in for them. So Abysmal Dawn was my first fill-in gig, and then from there, I guess Decrepit Birth, Matt Sotelo found me, or we started talking online, and I think he'd just seen videos, or, yeah, I don't think we ever played together before that. And then from there, it was just started getting more and more calls and everything. So
it is crazy. You're sort of like that guy, though. You know, how do you feel about
this
that?
Year, I've done 5 bands. So I've done Beneath from Iceland flew me out. I did a couple shows with the Faceless. I did Decrepit Birth, the Kennedyville. I'm out with Powerglove now. Potentially, I might be back in Canada in December with something confidential. I can't talk about that now, but we'll see if that works out. Hopefully it does. But also at the same time, I feel like touring Canada in December is going to be terrifying.
It's not something that I would recommend, honestly.
No, and that's what I told them. Like, when this band contacted me, I was like, that seems like a bad time to tour Canada.
We don't, yeah, absolutely not. How does it feel for the Kennedyvale? Kennedyvale's like your band. Do you feel like all of the session work is something that's hindering their progress? How do the boys feel about it?
I mean, we haven't had to turn down any tours because of my session stuff as of yet. They just did 3 weeks through Canada with Archspire, and we had a fill-in drummer and a fill-in bass player for that. So I hired Dylan Potts from Rivers of Nile and flew him out. They stayed at the house for a couple days rehearsing and everything. I was going over fills and parts with him, and everything I've seen online and how they were talking about it, he killed it and played all the songs very well. So I know there are people that, you know, can step in and help out when I'm helping someone else out, if need be.
I was talking to Aaron Homa from Annihilator, Clitoris, last week, and he was saying that it's the importance of a band not being the members.
Right.
You know,
it's the music.
It's the music, so it doesn't really matter who's there as long as the music is there.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. I don't know if you agree with that.
I can agree to an extent. Like with something like Powerglove. People come to Powerglove shows for the nostalgia of it. People don't care who's playing it, and I didn't think it was going to be this way, because when they posted online the drum video I made for Under the Sea and posted about me filling in, people were like, oh, Basil's not going to be there, and people were like really upset about it and talking shit and everything. But I think maybe this entire tour, maybe 2 people have brought it up, that the actual band isn't here. I don't think anybody actually knows the face of Powerglove. They're just like, video games, metal, sick, I'm there.
Give the listeners like a rundown. What is Powerglove?
Powerglove is a video game based metal band. So they do like power metal style covers of songs like X-Men, Pokemon, Power Rangers, Kirby. We did Under the Sea. Yeah, it's just a very fun show, and we have a laser light show and everything. So and a sound guy with us, he does a great job, so it sounds good, it looks good. It's just a fun show, and it's funny to, like, you see people in Gore Guts and Disgorge and Cannibal Corpse t-shirts at these shows, and they just look like the most burly metal looking dudes, and then you go into Pokemon and they just melt into 7-year-olds and they're just screaming Pokemon. And I was
gonna ask you to say that story, because I read your post about it earlier this week.
It's funny, and it's fun, because you have all these mean metal dudes, but it's not a Sea of Black every night either. Like, it's not your typical death metal show.
It's like strikes a chord, the video game.
And there's people
crowd,
that are like,
D&D crowd.
You can tell a lot of these people like aren't into metal, but they're just like, oh, this band does heavy video game songs. And then what's one funny thing to me is they're like, I don't know how you play that fast, and it's like,
this is slow.
This isn't, like Cryptopsy and Decrepit Birth and stuff like that. Like, this is easy.
Being a session player, are you always a fan of the band that you're playing for?
So far, I have been.
Like, it's a band that you've known about, or you became a fan?
Yeah, I haven't done any bands that I didn't know prior to going into it. I would say Beneath was the hardest one, because they're just so fucking fast, and the parts are really complicated. And Mike Heller did the drums on the last record. He's the drummer in Malignancy and Fear Factory, and just writes the most complicated parts, and nothing ever repeats. And that last album, nothing is in 4.
Oh yeah,
so I was trying
counting.
to figure out how to play these songs, and I ended up changing quite a bit of it just because Mike Heller isn't human and I am, so I had to adapt to try and, these guys want to play a show. I have to at least be able to get through the songs.
Yeah, you don't want to stumble halfway through.
Right, so yeah, I changed a lot with them, but yeah, I am a fan of the band, and pretty much everyone I've played for. Yeah.
You're lucky, though. It's really...
And I don't know, like, if a band I really didn't enjoy asked me to do it, I don't know that I would. But it's hard to say. I guess it depends
on the paycheck.
Yeah.
Paycheck and the timing. And
yeah, like this tour, when they initially offered it, I didn't think about the dates as how long it was, but I'm like, fuck, that's like 7 weeks, and plus rehearsal, I'm going to be gone 8 weeks, and now I'm like just so ready to go home. But the tour's been great, so I'm happy I did it. And there's been a lot of issues on this tour. Not a lot, but my passport, we had an issue with that. So we were playing Colorado Springs at Sunshine Theater, and I had my wallet and passport in the green room on the corner of a table in the back of the room. And then we load out, show's over, everything's done, we're leaving. I'm driving to a friend's house, Andrew of Inferi, and halfway there we stopped to get gas and grab some food, and I check my pocket and my wallet's not there, which means my passport's not there either. So I go into like panic mode. I'm calling the venue. Can't do anything that night. It's like already 2, 3 in the morning. So get a hold of the venue the next day. They're looking around for it. They say they can't find anything. So I go to the bank to try and like cancel my cards or get temporary cards so I can still, survive and eat and drink IPAs on tour. And they can't do anything for me because I don't have an ID.
Oh my God.
And so I can't do anything about my banking. Go back to his house. We have that day off, so we drive to Tempe. On the way to Tempe or Mesa, we stop back at the venue just because I would feel better personally looking at the venue. I know exactly where I had it. So we go back there, don't see it, keep going. We go to Mesa, Arizona, play that show. I cancel my passport on the way there because it's gone at that point. And then the next morning, Gabe, the other Gabe, is filling out guitar. He opens his backpack, and there's my passport and wallet in his backpack.
No fucking way.
So we think that the cleaning crew from the venue before saw his backpack next to my passport, threw my shit in his bag, and then it was just gone for a couple days, and we didn't know. It was sandwiched between two laptops.
What a relief. Eh?
Kind of, but I had canceled my passport. So you can't uncancel that. You can't
reinstate something.
You can't do that. So I have to figure out how to get a new passport, and we're going into Canada in 5 days. We have Vancouver. So I find an expedited passport place in Los Angeles and drive from Tempe through the night, like 7.5 hours, to get there at 9 a.m. to try and get this figured out. I get there, I don't have any paperwork or anything. I'm like, here's my old passport, here's my ID.
You told him the story.
Yeah. Like, well, here's what you need. You need 7 documents, at least 12 months old, with your name on it so we know who you are. We need your original birth certificate and other information and everything. So I'm calling home. Hey, I need all this stuff overnighted to LA. We have 3 days in Southern California. We're doing San Diego, Santa Ana, and Hollywood. So, okay, we got 3 days to figure this out. I overnight it. My parents, or my dad, had sent a copy of the birth certificate, so it wasn't the original one. So I have all this information, but I still can't use that. So they put everything together that I did have, and then just said, okay, go to San Francisco tomorrow morning. They're open 7 to 11 or something. Get your original birth certificate. They will seal it. They will overnight it to, it has to go to Memphis, and then it has to go back to San Francisco, and then it has to get to me in Seattle within 2 days.
Holy fuck.
So I didn't know if it was going to work out. My girlfriend brought my birth certificate to San Francisco the next morning. We meet there. We get it all taken care of. So it's out of my hands at this point. They sealed it. They sent it. And now I'm in San Francisco on Saturday. Sunday, there's no post. Monday, we're in Portland. Tuesday, Saturday, we're in San Francisco. Sunday, we're in Portland. Monday, we're in Seattle. Tuesday, I need to be in Vancouver. So that leaves, they shipped it Saturday. It goes to Memphis. It comes back on Monday. And then Tuesday, I'm checking my phone, and it still says, like, on the emails, it says it hasn't shipped yet. So I don't know if it's going to be there or not. But then Tuesday morning comes around, I get an email, your passport's here, go pick it up. And it worked out. But,
that's so
$600 later, in the most stressful week of my life.
My. And it was in the guy's bag the whole time.
Yep. So now I have 2 passports. One of them we can't do anything with, but, it has stamps from all over the world.
Yeah, you got to keep those.
Yeah, the nostalgia.
I keep those things, too. Yeah.
That was a stressful
epic
week.
Tour story.
Yeah. And then after the show in San Francisco, Gabe starts complaining like his stomach hurts, and we're like, okay, well, we'll drive here. Hopefully you'll feel better by the time we get to Portland. But it just keeps getting worse and worse. So
this is all in the same time,
the same day. So my passport's done with. I can't do anything else about it. Now we're driving to Portland. His stomach hurts. We end up dropping him off at the hospital when we get to Portland. And hours later, he's having surgery. He had his appendix removed.
Holy fuck, he was getting appendicitis.
That's why he missed that show. Yeah, he got appendicitis. So they took it out, and we picked him up that night, and we went to Seattle. He was on stage the next day. Sitting in a stool. He's not headbanging and everything. He's like wasn't 100% for a couple days. Like, he's still not really 100%, but at least, he's back on stage rocking out with
warrior.
Us. And, yeah.
Metal warrior. That's amazing.
It's been a little bit of drama that week.
Holy. Well, I'm glad that's over with. Jesus. Let's talk about drumming. Which drummer has influenced your evolution as a player the most?
In the early days, it was Flo was a big part of it. John Longstreth, Nick Barker. I didn't even get into his stuff until maybe like the last 5 or 6 years or so, when I first started hearing like Dimmu and Old Man's Child and everything. But even after I had already been playing for so many years, after hearing his work on like In Defiance of Existence by Old Man's Child and Puritanical by Dimmu, that really changed how I approached writing drums too. Like, being very subtle about where he places things, and really creative cymbal work, but not being over the top. He really lets the music breathe while still being creative with what he does.
Are you constantly evolving Do you feel like you're...
I feel like I am.
Never satisfied with where you're at? There's always
of course.
Something more
everyone's going to be their own worst critic.
What is something that you feel that you still struggle with?
My feet.
Your feet?
Yeah.
Okay. And what about the speed of them? The consistency?
Consistency. Yeah, like speed is okay, and it's getting a lot better. I feel better as a player now than I ever have, which is always the goal. You always want to be getting better and better. But yeah, it's just been a very slow improvement for my feet. Like, it's always been my weakness. My hands have always been fast and can keep up, but my feet can't always keep up with my hands. But the last couple years, I've really been working on the swivel technique, like George Calais. And that's been helping a lot. Watching George and Ken Badine from Aborted, and Jesse Beeler from Black Crown Initiate, and now it's kind of making a lot more sense to me, and it's getting more and more consistent. I think a couple years ago I probably couldn't be very consistent at 220 or 230. Now it's like 240, 250. Even Decrepit Birth has some stuff that's like 260, and I can actually, feel comfortable playing it and not like I'm just butchering it. Like, oh, the hands are there, but the feet are, eighth note triplets.
Turn down the kick drum on that song, please.
Yeah, exactly.
How is, maybe all the bands that you filled in for, do you think it's something that's helped your playing because it challenges you to play things that you normally wouldn't have even written?
Yeah, absolutely. And Abysmal Dawn was weird too. I didn't do a lot of shows with them. It was just a couple shows, but the drum parts were always very different from stuff I would do. And Decrepit Birth too. Like, it's so chaotic. Even when the guitars are very melodic and easy to comprehend, the drums might be doing something that doesn't necessarily make sense with the riff, but still as a whole piece of music makes sense. And then being on tour, of course, you're playing the same thing 30 nights in a row. You get really good at those songs that you're playing. But then at the same time, after those 30 days are done, you go back to home and I start practicing other things that I was good at a month ago, and now I have to like retrain my brain to play something that's not the set I've been playing for the last month.
When you do like a whole tour of these things, how do you learn all these freaking songs?
Put it on a playlist and put it on repeat, and that's all I listen to.
Okay, and you have a day job at home, I assume?
Yeah.
And I just to find the time to learn like a 30 song set sometimes, and 5 bands worth of sets, and they're all different, slightly different, makes your playing, you have to adapt your playing to each one.
Right. It's also helpful, like you're talking about earlier, being fans of the bands that I've worked for. Like, Faceless was really easy for me because I've been listening to the Faceless forever. I know those songs like the back of my hand. Even if I've never played them on drums, it's a lot easier to learn them because I'm already so familiar with the songs. Whereas Beneath, I had only heard about like 2 months before they contacted me, so I didn't really know the songs. So that one was really challenging. I listened to those songs on repeat for probably a month straight, and practicing and playing it every day, and then trying to play to like the drumless tracks and making kind of my own parts to it that still sound like the record, so people, like, if you're at the show, you're not really going to notice unless Mike Heller shows up, because he loves to give me shit that I'm not doing enough.
That's good. No pressure, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Talking about the Faceless, how did that come about? Why was it only a few shows?
They had contacted me for a few tours. Summer Slaughter, a couple years ago, they had contacted me for, but I had already had other commitments with, I think, the Kennedy Vale. And then when Brice Butler did 2 tours, they did a U.S. tour and a European tour. They had contacted me for that one as well. But again, it was like 2 weeks before, so I couldn't just leave work and leave my kid and everything. Takes a little bit of time to figure out, babysitting. But when they had contacted me for the 2 shows, it was headlining Spring Meltdown in Lake Tahoe and a show in Fresno, just a one-off. But that one was easy to say yes to, because even though it was still only 13 days before the shows that they contacted me, but I had already had click tracks for the songs from when they had asked me prior, so I already had worked on some of the stuff. I think we did 13 songs, and they were both local, so I didn't have to like take a bunch of time off work, and we could basically set up home base in Sacramento. I flew them out. They stayed at my house. I have a rehearsal space. So we ran through the set like 5 times for 2 days and then went and did the shows. But
how was the vibe in that band?
The vibe was great. Yeah, no issues at all.
Michael was okay on those days?
And I had toured with Michael in the past, and we've always gotten along. There was nothing weird going on, and he's a cool dude, and I liked hanging out with him and everything. And the shows went well, as far as I know, because I'm playing to the album guitars. If it wasn't great in the front, then that's not up to me.
No, I watched the videos. It looked really good. Yeah. What do you think? Do you think he's going to be able to get the band back where it used to be?
I think it'll take time. I didn't see them on this last tour. I had seen mixed reviews about it, whether or not they're playing great or butchering songs or whatever. I felt really good when we played together. I know he didn't feel great the second day, so I'm not sure exactly what it is. I didn't ask him about his issues and what he's going through and everything. I know there has been issues, but I can only hope for the best, because as a fan of the Faceless, I would love to see them back on their A game, like when they were top dogs.
Ancient Covenants,
Like 2010, and seeing the Faceless touring then, like they were unstoppable.
Yeah, absolutely. That whole Summer Slaughter that I did with them, they're amazing. And he just spent the whole time backstage writing that album. Which came in when it came out, it was like, what is this? It's amazing. I don't know what's going on in his life. I read all the internet garbage, and if that's true, I hope
he's an easy target now, because so much has happened.
That people around him make him get help, because we need more Faceless music. The last album was okay, but it wasn't my favorite, I would say, out of their whole catalog.
Yeah, I liked. Yeah, Ancient Covenant and Autotheism are the two for me.
I liked Autotheism. It was like Devin Townsend meets Opeth type sort of worship, but I like that, so I was super into that when it came out.
Right, yeah. As Tech Death was becoming more and more popular, it came out at like a very crucial time for the scene, I feel like.
Who do you think is the next up-and-coming drummers in our scene now? The next, extreme drummers.
I think Brice Butler is great. He did the Faceless, and Cody, who just did the Faceless, he's playing with Enemies. His playing is great. Jesse Beeler is a personal favorite of mine. He did Black Crown Initiate, but I don't know if I'm sure he's still playing, but I don't think he has plans to tour anymore.
Okay, he'll just be a studio guy.
Matthew Palazzo, he was in the Zenith Passage.
On that tour that we did, the Devastation. There, he's on
great.
Yeah.
And then
let's just talk about Brice Butler. How many bands is this kid in? I don't know how he does. He's in more bands than you.
He's probably in 3 times as many bands as I am.
I don't know how he does it.
Yeah, I don't know. He did a couple shows lately. One was, I think it was a 6-band package, and he played drums for every single band.
No way.
6 sets in a row that he played.
Well, at least there was no drum change.
Yeah, exactly. Made it easy.
The promoter was happy.
Yeah. And the sound guy. But I think he has another show coming up where he's doing like 4 bands in one night. I don't know how he has the time to learn all the songs, the brain capacity to hold all the songs, and the stamina to play that many songs in a row.
That guy's got a totally infectious laugh.
Yeah, I can still hear it written in my head right now.
So when he was on Devastation with us, he was playing with Seeker, and Seeker's not the most technical band, so I didn't know that this kid had all these chops.
Yeah, he's a lot of cymbals and bells and whistles, like splashes and stuff. He does cool cymbal work.
Let's talk about a dream tour for you. You book your own tour, 3-band package, Kennedy Vale, 2 other bands. What would be that tour for you?
The Kennedy Vale, Behemoth, and Misery Index.
That'd be cool. Yeah.
It's a very weird bill, but I think it could work.
For you as a fan, and for you as like
I just want to watch Adam Jarvis play drums every night. That dude's a fucking monster.
Yeah. Behemoth is on my list as well.
Yeah.
I definitely love to do a tour.
One tour with Behemoth when I was doing the Abbath thing. We toured Europe, so that was 11 shows with those guys, but I was like kind of awestruck the whole time, like, I want to go over there and hang out with those guys, but
what am I going to say?
What to say.
So you played for Abbath as well. How long did that go on for?
We did 50 shows. We did a European tour. It was Behemoth, Abbath, Entombed, and Inquisition.
That's a great lineup.
We headlined the Decibel Tour in February of 2016 with High on Fire, Skeleton Witch, and Tribulation.
It's also a great tour.
Yeah. I didn't know Tribulation before that, but I've been hooked on the band ever since. They're super fun to watch. We shared a bus with them. They're really cool guys, and I'm just a huge fan of their music now.
How much of the Abbath that we see, in the social medias,
interviews and stuff.
Yeah,
Any interview
how much
you've
of that
ever
is
seen
true?
of Abbath, that's how he is all the time.
Oh yeah, that's super entertaining.
Yeah, he was super fun to tour with, and he loves music, and he loves talking and telling stories, and he has a million stories to tell, and they're all more entertaining than the last. So he was fun to be on the road with until it's 6 a.m. and you want to go to sleep, and he says, wait, one more Kiss video, one more Eric Carr drum solo, and he just goes off about Kiss, and you'll be up all night watching Kiss videos with the guy.
What keeps you sane on tour?
Beer.
as he casually glances down towards his half-filled IPA glass.
Yeah, I try to call home often and talk to family and loved ones and my son and everything. I'm not as good about it, and being in Canada, I can't really do anything because my phone doesn't work here.
I find it hard being on tour and communicating back home. It makes me
miss it more. Yeah, especially if you're playing your hometown on tour and then you still have a ways to go. I remember a couple months after my son was born, I was with Decrepit Birth for our first tours, my first tours that I did with them. We did a 6 Feet Under tour, and then I was home for about a week and a half, 2 weeks, and then we did another 2 or 3 weeks in Europe. So that was my first long tour, and it was right after my son was born. So the first tour was okay. I felt fine. I wasn't homesick or anything. And then I'm home for a couple days and then leave again. And then that second tour after I left again, I was like, this fucking sucks. I want to be home with my kid.
Yeah, I felt like an eternity. Those early months of a baby, though, so much changes so fast that you end up missing a huge chunk of their development.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, now he just started second grade a couple weeks ago, and
that's amazing. That's crazy.
Yeah, he understands it a little more now. My dad's on tour. He's playing drums for
Does he think it's
whoever
cool?
it is.
Does he think it's cool, or he doesn't?
Yeah, he likes
care.
it.
Yeah.
And he plays a little bit too. He doesn't really let me teach him anything. He'll sit behind the drum set and play, and I'll be like, hey, let me show you a paradiddle. Let me show you a rock beat. And he'll say, no, I want to play my own thing, which is also good because you have your own ear for it, and you're gonna do what you think sounds good.
That's good. He's got a hard head.
Yeah,
he's gonna learn. Maybe when he gets older, he'll open up more to some direction.
Yeah, but he's very good with memorizing things. You turn on the radio in the car, and he'll sing whatever song comes on. He memorizes lyrics like it's nothing.
See, I feel like I used to be like that, but now I can't remember lyrics for the life of me.
And me, being into metal, no offense, I don't care what you're talking about. I care how you say it.
I want the tone. Is the tone there?
Yeah, I don't know what Cryptopsy lyrics are, but it sounds cool.
Cold, Hate, Warm Blood. That's it. Just song titles. What is the best piece of advice that you would give to someone starting a band today?
Take your time. There's no rush to get on stage. If you feel unprepared, keep practicing. Stay in the garage. Stay in your rehearsal spot. Wait until you have all the kinks hammered down. And I don't know. That's kind of a double-edged sword, I guess, because I would also encourage you to go get out and get on stage and get in front of people, because you're going to learn a lot there too. You can only learn so much before you ever get on stage, because then that's a whole other ballpark of things that you need to learn, loading in, loading out, being punctual, getting off stage on time, not breaking down your drum set on stage.
Are you listening? Are you listening, children? You don't say hi to your friends before your frickin' gear's off stage. Completely agree. What is the best piece of advice that you received from someone, with more experience than you?
I'm not sure. There was John Longstreth recently did an interview that I liked a lot, and he said speed is a byproduct of control, and that kind of resonated with me a lot. You don't need to try and be the fastest that you can be all the time without having control over what you're doing. Because if you can control 100% what your limbs are doing, then that's when you can, start going faster and faster and still being consistent with what you're doing
and have dynamics throughout it too. So
that's
very interesting.
I've kind of that's stuck in my head, and I've been really focused on that the last year or so. Like, instead of, I'm going to try to hit 290 today, like, how about I do 240 but I do it perfect for 5 minutes, and that's actually really good. What about the accomplishment that you're most proud of? I would say the Kennedyville record, Imperium. I think I'm really proud of what we did with that. There's a couple parts in there that I would have loved to gone back and change, but we put a strict time restraint on us. We had 2 or 3 songs written, and that was in like July or August, and then we booked studio dates. So like, all right, December, we're in the studio. Like, we have to get this record done. And it came together a lot better than I expected it to, given the circumstances. Even like the day before we went in to record guitar, we still needed like another song and a half. So it's like, okay, we have a couple riffs. What do we do? So like, we're up all night. Casey records a couple riffs, and then I take those riffs and just kind of chop them up and structure it and move it around, and it ended up being like one of my favorite songs on the record.
It's funny how that happens sometimes. The ones that you're least prepared with on the new Cryptopsy tour, the 4th track called The Way of the Flesh, it was the one that we were all like, not totally finished. We never got like a scratch track that was complete with like nice, good sounding, good consistent guitar sounds. It was like weird guitar sounds throughout it. Chris didn't have time, and it's one of my favorite tracks. And like, I had like lyrics, I knew what I wanted to do, but I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do throughout the whole thing, and it's one of my favorites. It's weird how that happens. Maybe it's because you didn't overanalyze it sometimes. I just kind of roll with it. Well, I'm out of time, this is what it is. And I actually like that. What about your misstep that you wish you could take back in your career?
I guess just being more prepared when I go on tour with a new band. I remember the first Abbath show was an absolute train wreck. Not solely because I wasn't prepared enough. Like, we rehearsed for 3 weeks. We had a lot of time to work on everything. But there was a lot of issues that show. The Abbath's guitar cable was bad, so every couple notes would be there, and then the next few notes would be gone. I think my drum monitor was blown, so the notes that I did hear were just fuzz. And Abbath hadn't played a show in a couple years, and he put on his makeup a couple hours before the show, and then went to the bar down the street.
Oh,
so all the fans see.
What show was this?
This was the CD release in London.
Okay.
So there's probably, I think there was about 2,000 people there.
Okay.
And so he goes to the bar, and I'm not really sure if I'm supposed to talk about this, but whatever. So he goes to the bar and then comes back completely blacked out, like 15 shots of vodka later. Like, I remember he was in the green room, like, he and Tom are joking around, and like, they're just drunk and having a good time, like throwing bottles.
Hold on, did he go to the bar in his makeup?
Yes. So that's why. Like, he went to the bar in his makeup before the show, so people are at the bar waiting for the show, and they're like, holy shit, it's Abbath. Let's take shots. So he comes back hammered. I remember the manager locked herself in the green room bathroom. She's crying in there. They're fucking drunk and throwing shit around. Like, I walk into this because my brother lived in London at the time, so I went and had dinner with my brother. I come back to this, I'm like, what the fuck is going on?
What did I get myself into?
So we're playing the show. The sound is fucked. I can't hear anything. He's drunk. His cable's fucked. And we train wreck like 3 songs. Like stop in the middle of these songs. And it's like immortal songs that have been played for 20 years, and the new Abbath songs.
In London. London's huge.
In London,
the metal
the
scene in
O2 Forum,
London.
this gorgeous venue, and the place is packed. There's like 2,000 plus people there. And that was the one night where I was like, I'm so glad I'm wearing a mask. Nobody knows who the fuck I am, except for like my brother's here and the opening band. So we have the Black Dahlia Murder opening for us, which is like one of my favorite bands. Alan's behind me filming. Benighted is opening for us. The drummer of Benighted wrote the drums on the Abbath record, so he's sitting behind me watching me butcher his songs. And then Primordials.
No pressure.
Yeah, not at all.
Wow.
And that was just a bad night. And then there was one redeeming thing when we went to the airport after the show. A guy that was at the show came up and was like, hey, saw you guys tonight? And I'm like, ooh, I'm sorry. But he's like, I'll be at the show tomorrow night. And I'm like, oh, cool. There's at least one person that saw that shit show is going to be at the next show and redeem ourselves. So I went, played the show. I went and found the guy after the show, and he was all excited. He was like, that was much better.
So being more prepared.
Yeah, preparation for sure. And now I think that was like the last time I had stage fright. Like even going out with the Faceless or Beneath and Powerglove and everything, like I haven't felt nervous before a show since then. And I think it was just because like I never expected to even meet the guy, let alone play for him. And
that's a huge gig.
Huge show, and we're like about to meet up with Behemoth and everything. So that was pretty nerve-wracking. But after that first show, everything was fine. Like that was the only bad show.
Why no more? Are you not drumming for Abbath anymore?
I guess you could say personal differences. So I did the 2 tours, and after the tours, Tom and I kind of got into it a little bit, but now he's not
Tom
with Abbath. Tom is King of Hell. He was with Gorgroth. He's a bass player.
Okay.
So yeah, now that he's not in the band anymore, I'm kind of like, hey, can I get my job back?
You never know what's going to happen in life.
Yeah. I mean,
always keep doors open.
Again. He was fun to tour with.
I think a Decrepit Abbath tour would be fun.
Yeah.
Little genre crossing, but not too far apart.
No, it's still metal.
Do you have any guilty pleasure music vices that you're willing to share?
Not really. I kind of like everything. I was checking out the new Eminem the other day. I thought it was all right.
So was I, yeah. And then I was like, my kid's awake, and I can't have this playing anymore because it's quite vulgar.
Yeah,
and clear Eminem. Vulgar. So take that, you mumble fucks. Yeah.
Yeah, they're still the top dogs in rap, which is like Eminem and Tech Nine, the guys that really know how to tell a story with words. You know, a lot of the modern rap is not so much like that, like cars and shoes and money and bitches and
bang bang.
Yeah, whatever. I would rather hear a story, you know.
Who's the next big metal band in your opinion coming up?
I think Atme, this band, they opened for us in Kansas City at the Riot Room.
I listened to their release. They're from Kansas City, right?
Yeah. They're from there, and I had listened to a couple of their songs. They just put a new record out, and the song sounded great, but I wasn't really sure what to expect live. But they sounded massive.
I really like that new record.
Yeah,
I feel like they've opened for Decrepit too at the Riot Room.
Probably
on one of those runs that I've done through.
Yeah, they were great. They're very almost like a mix between Archaic and the Zenith Passage. But really tight instruments and
good songwriting.
They always play really well. Yeah.
Shout out to the Riot Room. The owner, can't remember his name, but you're freaking awesome, and there's excellent beer at the Riot Room. What is your favorite album of the moment right now?
Probably The Killing Gods by Misery Index. Yeah, it's just pure aggression front to back, and I know Adam Jarvis, I think, had a big part in that record. I think he took a lot of the riffs and kind of like I did with Imperium, kind of rearranged everything and made it sound how it is.
And fluid.
Yeah.
Do you have anything you want to shout out? Stuff coming up?
Bloodletting tour with Decrepit Birth. I'll be with Decrepit Birth, co-headlining with Arsis, Internal Bleeding, Within Destruction, Angel Maker, and Pyrexia. So we'll be coming back through here. That starts October 10th and runs through November 11th. I know we'll be in Ottawa on Halloween.
You're coming through here.
And we'll be in Montreal.
27th, I want to say.
Okay, a couple days before that then.
Well, thanks for taking the time to being on Vox&Hops.
Yep, thanks for having me.
And I wish you a great show with Powerglove tonight.
Thank you so much.
Blast through Under the Sea for me.
Oh, yeah. I'll add an extra blast beat.
I'm absolutely stoked to have met up with you. Thanks for taking the time.
Cool. Thank you.
All the best.
Cheers.
Hey, thank you all for checking out Vox&Hops number 8. Gabe, you shared some great stories. You were extremely forthcoming. You held nothing back. I love it. So happy to sit down with you. You know, you meet these people on tour. You get to chit chat here and there in the venues, but you never really get to know people on tour the way that I have the chance to when I meet them for the interviews at Vox&Hops. We were sitting at Saint-Bock, which is one of Montreal's best brew pubs. They have just such a wide variety of delicious beer, and anytime that I'm downtown, I always go to St-Bock. They just have the best beers. The staff is friendly. It was just so amazing to sit down with Gabe, get to pick his brain. You know, we did it in the afternoon before he played the set with Powerglove that night. Next up on the podcast, episode 9, I sit down with Pat Loisel, the guitarist and vocalist of Augury. I had such an amazing conversation for you guys. I'm so excited to share this with you. We talk about Pat growing up with Asperger's in an era when these diagnoses did not exist, his unbelievable collection of over 200 tarantulas. I swear to God, this guy has 200 tarantulas in his basement in this little tiny room. They're all in separate aquariums. It's I'm not necessarily into spiders, but I went in there and I checked them all up, and they were very interesting and very beautiful. But I was happy to leave that room and watch him lock that door. He also told me about how most of the material that he writes with augury right now is stuff that he's written back in the 80s, and he has all this material in his mind. He would bring it to a band. The band would say, no, that's not right. So he just put it in the vault, and then all of a sudden, he shows up and he's writing all this augury material. He's found bandmates that can collaborate with, that are open to his extreme vampire music, as his old bandmates would call it, and he pulls out all this stuff. Super great conversation. Really stoked to share it with all you guys and girls. All of that is up next on episode 9 of Vox and Hops. As always, if you have any suggestions, recommendations of who I should interview, what beers I should share with people, please send me emails at matt@voxandhops.com. All the best. Thank you.